I just remember looking at this guy and just feeling zero connection and going, this is not my father either. My two younger brothers were eventually taken to Saudi Arabia and not allowed to come back. He tried to kill my mom and he ended up getting deported.
At 29, you've become the CFO of a billion-dollar company.
Until we look within, every time we're annoyed, frustrated, anger, stressed, which is, again, this is stuff we teach at the school, right? To not blame others, to look within, we're never going to resolve our own issues. The two teachers that made the biggest impact in my life are the ones that had the biggest hearts. They embraced me with hugs. I was always protective of the people who were being bullied. This new girl comes to class, calling her names in class, and I stand up and I basically tell this girl off. Her and her little gang buddy friends chased me home with a knife that day.
Hello and welcome back to Rise, the life stories of accomplished individuals. The premise of this podcast is to provide value to the audience by exploring and understanding the life paths and challenges of said accomplished individuals. Today, I'm very happy to say we've got Leila Centner with us. Hey, Leila.
Hello.
How's it going?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, listen, this was something that I've been looking forward to since we first started talking about it. I want to start off with providing context as to exactly who you are and why we're here, and then I have some funny stories about how we met and so on and so forth. So let's start, and I'll just jump into it. So for many years, Leila was the Chief Financial Officer at Highway Toll Administration, also known as HTA. And Leila, alongside her husband David, who we're going to get into working with your husband in a bit, in 2018, sold that company for a very, very meaningful amount of money. We're not going to get into the dollar amount. People can feverishly go to Google and check that out and do your research. Definitely life-changing sum of money. Prior to HTA, Leila held several high-level financial roles, both with Arthur Andersen and Deloitte, overseeing engagements with multi-billion-dollar accounting clients. Ongoing involvement with humanitarian organizations, one of which is Convoy of Hope, and your very own Centner Foundation, which, again, she co-manages with her husband, David. Graduated magna cum laude. I mean, you graduated and you did something, like, I can't even pronounce how good this stuff is, like magna cum laude. That's very impressive. Yeah. So magna cum laude from the University of Southern California's School of Accounting. She received her MBA from the University of California. Mother of two little girls, correct me if I'm wrong, ages 9 and 7?
8 and 5.
8 and 5, sorry, 8 and 5. Currently, Leila is the CEO and founder of Centner Academy, where we're located today. And we're actually located, for those of you watching this on YouTube, in the meditation room. So this is an elementary school with a meditation room. Yes. That's wild. We're gonna get into that. I want to read a couple of excerpts from your website for Centner Academy, because it's one thing to provide context of what you've done to get you to this point. But it's also really important to understand what you're doing today and kind of your contribution to the world, of which, I'm very much a part of, because our children, all 3 of our children, go to your school. So I'm gonna read some of the excerpts. If your family is ready for a school that knows your children can be happy, healthy, and successful, then it's time to try Centner Academy. So I just want you to jump in here, Leila. One of the things that I find fascinating about your school, and this is, when I'm talking about your school and people ask me, like, why is it different? From my perspective, the most meaningful difference is that this is a school that's run by entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And to me, I feel that in every touch point that you have. And I've obviously seen profound different changes to my children, to all 3 of my kids. They're about to finish their first academic year with you. Can you just, before we get into your life story, because I really want to get into that, that's the premise of this podcast, but can you just tell me, like, why did you add "and successful"? Because you're probably the only school that talks about success. Yeah.
Well, we put happy and successful in one sentence together. And the reason why we spell that out is because there are a lot of people who are successful on paper, but their soul is just not happy. And so my husband and I sold our company in 2018. We were on paper very successful, but there was something missing in our hearts.
Wow.
There was a level of happiness that wasn't there. And so we go back and say, no. Once we went to India, we did all of our spiritual healing and our journey. We said, oh my God, happiness is first. Happiness within, feeling it deep in your soul. And that leads to truly being successful. Because success on paper isn't really success if your soul feels empty.
Okay.
And so that's why we put it together.
Okay. Look, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, you know, I've had conversations with David at your home, and one of the things that David said is that the curriculum that you're putting together and the way you educate children is to, I guess, circumvent or avoid the stress that's involved in climbing to the top, into being successful. David mentioned to me, you know, his experiences as an entrepreneur and how stressful. I mean, David's had multiple exits, you know, in his career. And for him, he talked about just the profoundly negative effect that success had on his life. Yeah. So, you know, David would say, hey, like, let's educate the children in a way that they can stay calm through their rise, through their climb.
That's exactly it. Staying calm, enjoying the journey, not doing it with brute force, but doing it with just ease and calmness. I mean, people ask me and my husband all the time because we have a lot on our plate.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah, definitely.
And they're like, how do you do it all yet you have a smile on your face? Right. And that smile is really a smile from within. It's not a phony smile on the outside. And yes, there are moments where we have to breathe.
Right.
But knowing that we have gotten to a place where we need to bring it back down so we can navigate the world or whatever problem solving that we need to do, if we're doing it from a calm and peaceful state, that is the way to truly go through this journey of life, go through this journey of, you know, abundance or whatever your goals are, right? If you're doing it just like, you know, just shoveling the snow, thinking that you have to like have all the weight on your shoulder and you have to do it stressed and anxious. No, you don't.
Well, the great thing about it is it compounds in the sense that the calmer you are, first of all, the better it is for your health. The healthier you are, the clearer your mind, the more you succeed. Yes. So it's almost like, it's like counterintuitive thinking that if you stay calm while going through hardships, then maybe you won't get through that hardship. But the fact that it calms you and brings you to a place of balance allows you to perform better. So it's
100%, and it's scientifically proven, and we actually teach it to our kids throughout all grades. We teach them the different parts of their brain.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe your kids came home and taught you this.
It's like they said, no, but you know what? My kids come home and they say things to me that as soon as they say it, I'm like, Leila, like, and it just blows my mind. I have some more. I want to continue because I want to really get to your life story, but it's hard because I go off track.
It's okay.
Because I want to talk about the school.
It's exciting.
Okay. So more quotes from your website.
Let's go back to that later so we can talk about the different stages of the brain and how we really teach that in school, because I didn't learn it until I was 41.
Wow.
And my husband had a heart attack at 41.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did, because he just did not know how to deal with stress.
You know, David now, he's the most chilled guy. Yeah. Whenever I see him, he's got a smile on his face. He's super fit, and he's just everything.
Very handsome, by the way.
He is a handsome fellow. This I will attest to. Okay, so let's continue. So our innovative, so this is a quote from your website, our innovative approach to education prioritizes project-based learning, individualized attention, and social emotional development. Moving on, at Centner Academy, we believe that the students learn best when using their minds to solve problems, create solutions, and collaborate with peers to make the world a better place. Our project-based learning approach emphasizes real-world problem solving and critical thinking skills, providing students with tools they need to succeed in the future. Well, I messaged you in our group chat a couple of weeks ago when Benjamin, my 8-year-old, on the way to school said, "Hey, Dad, today we're doing a project based on data analysis." Like, for an 8-year-old to say that, you know, again, it was one of those, yep, that's Leila, you know. Okay, so just moving on.
I love data.
What's that?
I love data.
Well, listen.
Real data.
Real data is the best.
Not fake data.
One of the things that I find really interesting about the school, and again, this is all, we're still talking about I'm still providing context as to kind of who you are and what you're doing before we get into your life story. One of the things that I believe it was you who told me, you or David, either you told me directly or it was like in a public setting, at one of the events to the parents, is that after kids finish high school here, they're actually prepared to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Did I understand that
Yes,
correctly?
absolutely.
So, I mean, that's huge because it makes me understand that the stuff that you're teaching kids here, like the methodology that you use, isn't just simply about, doing calculus for the sake of learning calculus and never using it again.
Exactly.
The fact that our children can actually become entrepreneurs after high school, not to like negate college. I mean, you have an MBA, like you have a lot of education, but it's interesting that one of the kind of thesis of this school is that if you don't want to, you don't necessarily have to go to college.
Sure.
So it's a little contradictory based on your own experience, but I understand the reason why.
And also, college is very, very different than when I went to college.
Yes.
Right? And so I went to USC, and there wasn't really any of the woke mobness happening there.
Right.
In addition, when I went to USC, it was $35,000 a year. It's $65,000 now.
Wow.
What is it going to be in another 10 years? And how much more brainwashing and indoctrination is going to be in college? So there are some families who are saying, you know what? I would rather take that money that they're going to put into college and give it to them to start their own business.
To me, I also look at it as like an ROI. Like the ROI is like you go to college and you spend $250,000, or like if you're an Ivy League, your like parents are spending $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. That's probably just for undergraduate, and then like what are the kids making back at that point? But just the fact that with your school they can be entrepreneurs afterwards is, to me, it redefines education. But
also, I also tell people, if they do want to go into the workplace setting, it will also make them better leaders,
yes,
better managers,
yes,
better executives. Why? Because they're going to leave here with critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. Unfortunately, when you talk to a lot of high school graduates, there's zero critical thinking in their brains.
You know what's interesting? You just reminded me of a seminar yes, I agree with you, but you just reminded me of something. I just recently went to a lecture, an AI lecture, and one of the things that there were two women who were very high up in that world, and I don't know if they worked for like OpenAI or who it was. I couldn't catch who they worked for, but one of the things they said is that this is the first generation, because of AI, what they foresee happening, and part of the problem is that AI is solving problems for people. So they won't be able to have that muscle. They won't be developing that muscle because the machines are going to be solving the problems for them. So the threat isn't so much like you see in the movies that the machines are taking over. The threat is more the machines are going to start thinking for us so that we just become vegetables.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, just think about something as basic as spell check. How many people do not know how to spell now because they're completely reliant on spell check?
Right.
Or these grammar programs where they've completely lost grammar because now they just rely on a program. It's the same thing. They're trying to make our brains mush balls so that way we're just walking human flesh.
So we're controllable.
Exactly.
Well, that's fair. I want to move on, and I want to talk more about. I want to touch one more thing about the school, and I want to tell you that from the conversations I've been having with parents here. So one of the things that you do, and I know you do it very intentionally, and this is one of the huge differentiators of having a school that's run by entrepreneurs versus administrators, is you've brought all of the families together. Yeah. So we attend events regularly. I see you all the time. I feel I see you often, yourself and David, and we come to your home with the other parents and we talk. And one of the things that I can tell you in my discussions with the parents is that people are moving from all over the country to come to your school for their kids to attend here. Which is wild for me. I was lucky enough to literally meet you and your family in a park.
It's true.
We were sitting in a park, and you were there with the girls and with David, and we met. And you graciously said, "You know what? We told you we had just moved to the country," and you were very welcoming. You said, "Come to our school."
Well, my 8-year-old did the recruiting. I think she had a little crush on one of your kids.
Yeah. Well,
so she went up to him, and she started telling him all about our school.
Amazing. And then David, I guess she she was kind of the first gatekeeper, and then I guess once she probably came up to you and David and said, it's okay, let's invite them to tour the school.
She actually whispered in my ear, Mom, they're really nice. Can they come to our school?
Amazing. Do you have her now?
By the way, she's an amazing gatekeeper even now. Sometimes when we do shadow days at the school, because our core values are very, we're very serious,
yes,
kindness, compassion, integrity, all of these things. And there was a kid who did a shadow day that was actually really mean to some of the kids. And she came home and she said, Mom, there was this kid that had a shadow day today and it was not nice. I don't think that this kid fits in our school. And so I waited to receive the notes, the feedback, because we do notes on every kid. Yeah. And the kid was hands down not recommended by several of the teachers because of exactly what my daughter said.
Wow. It sounds to me like she might have a future career as she might take your
recruiter,
job.
Maybe.
She might be the CEO of the school.
She's already gunning for it.
On top of the school, you just founded the Centner Wellness and Spa, which is it a 5,000 square foot facility? I remember you told me when you gave me a tour.
15,000.
15,000.
Yes.
You see, my numbers are all off. Maybe I should go back to school. So 15,000 square feet. I mean, you gave me a tour of this place, and you're building like a 12-person hyperbaric chamber with an airlock, which I think to most people it sounds what's the word I'm looking for? It's pretty sensational. You've got machines in there that look like little space shuttles that do all these kind of things, and I'm not saying it so much as a plug for the spa, although I wish you all the success with it. But I say it because this is again defining who you are. From your accomplishments with business, with high levels of business, with the sale of your company, now with the school, educating children, and now you've moved on and you're now looking into kind of the human physical condition, and it's just so it's all one package. I also want to mention,
by the way, my husband says I can't go small. When I originally proposed the idea, it was a 2,500 square foot location. And he's like, are you sure about that? I'm like, yeah, I think so. And then as I'm looking for space and thinking about all the things I want to put in there, I'm like, yeah, you're right, honey. I can't go 2,500 square feet. It's just too small. So went from 2,500 to 15,000. Same thing with the schools. My original proposal, he calls it a scope creep.
Yeah.
My original proposal was one building, maximum like 50 to 100 kids capacity. And we went from one building to 4 buildings with 1,000 kids capacity.
And you're building. So now there's about 400 students here?
We have about 300, yeah.
300.
The goal is for next year to have 400.
Right. And you're building a high school.
We're building a high school.
You're whispering about a college. It's a whisper.
I have a vision of partnering up with some of the colleges that I currently would trust.
Yeah.
Hopefully they stay the same.
Stay that way, yeah.
Partnering with them and building a location here in Florida is what I'd like to do, because they've already got everything ready to go. They might just need some investors to help get it going.
You also have residences for international students, or for just students from all over the country?
Yes, so we are currently in the progress of getting permitting and approvals for a 120 dorm facility with 13 high school classrooms and 13 teacher housing. And we just purchased, not far from here, a block away, some more land where I could build 216 teacher housing, so that way they can just...
teacher housing.
Housing.
So now you're... Okay, so by doing that, you are essentially... you're taking the limit off of like the geographic boundaries of finding teachers. Because I noticed that the teachers here are very high quality.
Yeah.
And you've shipped them in from various parts of the country. Yeah. By having housing, you're building housing for teachers, you're essentially increasing your pool. Like you're... Right?
Yes,
Is that the
yes.
logic?
And even for amazing teachers who were here in Florida that are driving an hour and a half each way.
Wow.
I tell them, look, just go to one of our... Because we have about 50 housing homes right now. Just go to one of our houses so you can save 3 hours a day. I mean, that's a significant drain to get into your class and have spent an hour and a half to 2 hours on the road because that's all you can afford. It's you're starting the class already at a deficit.
This is radical stuff. Like, this is like you're building housing for teachers so they can like decrease their commutes to make sure that when they wake up in the morning, they're fresh. They walk in a good mood.
That's the idea.
I know, but that's
I want them to be fresh.
You know, but you're like, to say that you're kid centric is an understatement.
Yeah, I'm very kid centric. They're our future.
No,
they're everything.
Absolutely.
Without healthy kids for our future, we have nothing.
100% agree. Okay. So as
and I'm definitely radical.
You are definitely radical. You are.
My husband tells me that all the time.
No, but listen, look, to get things done, you have to break the mold. You have to push forward, and you've done that. Now, look, I feel like we've now spent some time to really define you and so people can understand, the listeners can understand who you are. But it wasn't always like this, and I was actually very fascinated when you and I spoke. Actually, when you and I spoke, when I had my feet inside one of these machines in your wellness spa, and we were talking about kind of your origins and your early life, and my understanding is you didn't come from much, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
Okay.
I mean that as a contrast to where you are now. You're very mild mannered when you come to the school. You're this mild mannered educator, and but in reality, I mean, you're a titan in business and all these other endeavors. But tell me about your early life. I want people to understand that this is possible. It's not like you came from money and you were funded, and if I understand correctly.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me where are you from?
So I grew up in a little town called Victorville, California.
What's the population of that town?
It's probably still very little. I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I'm sure when I was born, it was probably like less than 100,000.
Wow.
And then my mom moved to Riverside, California, which wasn't far from there, but also, at that time, not such a great place. Lots of.
In what way?
It was a lot of poverty, a lot of gangs, a lot of dysfunction.
Were your parents together?
That's
if it's too personal, then
no. That's a whole complicated story. I never quite knew who my dad was.
Really?
Yeah, the person who my mom said he was not the person on my birth certificate. So that was something I actually had to deal with in my spiritual healing process, to not really truly understand who my dad was. And when I went searching for the guy that was on my birth certificate, I actually walked into a Social Security office because I had a Social Security card. And the lady is like, "Look, I can't really tell you this information, but you look like a sweet young girl. He just died a month ago."
Oh man!
So as I was trying to get information, he had just.
And again, this was sorry if I understand correctly. This was your biological dad.
This was the dad on my birth certificate, but my mom said that the dad on my birth certificate was not my dad.
So the man who your mom claimed was your biological dad, you never found.
I never found, no.
And you never found the man that was on your birth certificate.
And I never found the man that was on my birth certificate.
So you grew up without a father.
Yes. Well, no, sorry. Let's rewind that for a second.
Yeah.
I did not grow up with two parents in the house. My mom actually was married to 4 different men.
Wow.
Yeah. And she ended up marrying a guy who was the father of my 2 half-brothers.
Okay.
A guy from Saudi Arabia. But the guy that was my father on my birth certificate, when I went looking for him, I went to the Social Security office.
Yeah.
And they basically said to me, "Look, I'm not supposed to give you this information, but you look like a sweet young girl. Mm-hmm. The guy here died a month ago." Okay. So then there's this other guy that my mom said was my father. Okay. And this was this guy in Iran. And when I was in my early 20s, 23, I went to Iran to meet him. Mm-hmm. And I just remember looking at this guy and talking to this guy and just feeling zero connection and going, "This is not my father either." My mom was a little bit of a fast one growing up.
Sorry, but the premise was he was your biological father?
That's what my mom said.
But you didn't feel he was?
I didn't feel he was.
Could you have been wrong?
I'm pretty sure he wasn't.
Okay.
Also the way he treated me.
Right. Right.
He knew that my older brother was his son. And I think my mom, just because she's all about saving face, didn't want to look like a hussy.
Yeah.
So she said the father that was my older brother's dad was also my dad. Now, my older brother and him are identical twins.
Right.
I mean, to this day, my older brother has similar issues.
You grew up with your 2 brothers?
I grew up with my older brother and my two younger brothers were eventually taken to Saudi Arabia and not allowed to come back when they were young.
How old were you?
Let's see. They were maybe 4 and 8. So I must have been like 13, 14, 13.
That must have been traumatic for
That
you.
was hard. That was really hard. Especially he was a really bad person. He tried to kill my mom and he ended up getting deported. Yeah. He
Okay.
literally went to her workplace and tried to shoot her. Barely missed
Oh
each
my God.
time. He spent a few years in prison. They deported him. And my mom actually made the decision to let my two younger brothers go and visit him for a summer.
And
he never let them come back.
He never let them
and
come back.
so they came back when they were 18.
Wow.
And then my younger brother is the one that you met, God rest his soul.
Yes.
I took him under my wing pretty much from the time
So was he the one that was also taken from you? Like he was the
Yeah.
one of the ones that was taken
he
from
was
you?
one of the ones, yeah. But he was always my little baby.
Wow. Yeah. Were you communicating with them when they were living in Saudi Arabia? Sorry, Saudi Arabia. Right?
Yes, but not. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to communicate
Well, it's
with
tough
them.
because they were 4 and 8. I mean,
They were little.
I have kids that age, and I
Yeah.
understand what
Can
it
you
like.
imagine?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
That would be
It was
devastating.
not easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't expect that. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of threw me for a loop there. I knew kind of from my brief conversations with you that you had hardships when you were
Yeah.
young, but not to that degree, which makes your story that much more fascinating. The fact that you could go from that to where you are now. So,
Yeah, I mean, my mom, she pretty much was on welfare because even though she was married to this guy from Saudi Arabia, he would only come during the summers, and he never really was financially providing much.
right.
So she was on welfare while she was trying to get a nursing degree. And then once she got her degree, she was working 12 to 15-hour days. So, like, we had every opportunity to be like the rest of my friends, right? So at 13, three or more of my friends were pregnant.
How old?
At 13.
So
Yeah.
you were 13 and you had pregnant friends who
I
were
had
your
pregnant
age?
friends, yeah. But the difference between me and them is I would come home from school and I would play cards with my grandfather because they felt safe in my home and I wasn't roaming the streets. I could have because I had pretty much no parental supervision. They were roaming the streets and I just felt more safe being home playing cards with my grandfather.
Leila, what was the differentiator between you and, like, this is all fascinating to me. I mean, you grew up in a cohort of people who you could have easily gone that way too. What was the differentiator
Easily.
between
My older
you?
brother was in jail by the time he was 18 on drugs. And I never, ever touched anything. The first time I drank alcohol, I was 29.
Wow. You know, Leila, it happens often that people from very modest beginnings get to heights like yours. But yours, I mean, respectfully, are below modest beginnings. Like,
Yeah.
I've never met, now in speaking with you, I've never met anyone who's started at that point and been through those experiences who have gotten to where you've gotten. So I guess my question to you and the value, like what I'm trying to establish and the value that I want to bring to this audience is I want to show them that regardless of where you are in life,
Yeah.
there is a path. So I'm trying to...
I'll tell you the answer.
Yes, please.
I know the answer. 2 things. God.
Okay.
I always had God in my heart. And mindset.
Talk to me about both. Which one was first? God?
God. Yeah.
So you were always religious, you had faith?
No, we were never religious. There was something in my heart and I always felt a connection to God. I'd sometimes go with my friends to their churches, but then I would feel fakeness in their church. So I would just pray to myself. I would just talk to God. I remember one day I was 15. I had just received my permit. I had taken my mom's car because she was working all the time, and I had driven all the way to Newport Beach, which was like 60 miles.
Yeah.
This is far for a 15-year-old with a permit that I could have actually gotten pulled over and been arrested. And I went all the way to Newport Beach, and I remember just parking the car. Actually, it was also during the week, so I skipped school that day. And when I would skip school to do stuff like this. While everybody else would skip school to do bad stuff, I was skipping school to manifest. I didn't know at the time I was manifesting. I didn't learn that until later. right? Until I read The Secret and, Law of Attraction and all that stuff. I was like, oh my God, I was doing that naturally. And I remember sitting on the sand in Newport Beach, just staring into the ocean, looking up at the sky, just thinking, God, I know you have better plans for me. Just even thinking about it, I'm getting choked up.
You always knew? You always knew?
I always knew.
You always knew that you'd get here where you are now?
I didn't know I'd get here, but I knew I was destined for something way more. I just knew it with every heartbeat of my soul.
So is part of that the manifestation? So with somebody, what would you tell somebody? What would you tell a young person? I don't want to take it to like a young woman. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, regardless of the gender. Like, would you tell a young person who's currently in a situation like that, who they're young, they're in these really hard times, they have this situation at home, or something similar or worse? What would you tell them? How do you change your mindset? Because I think that's the key. The key is, how do you change your mindset? And even me as an adult, I have a problem sometimes when things get negative, things don't go our way. We all do. When things don't go our way, we get down. How do you had this naturally? Like, did you have it naturally, or did you?
I had it naturally.
So you had it naturally. But how do you? So
I had it naturally, but I had to do things to enforce that. Right? I'll explain. So I knew that I was starting at a deficit because of my upbringing, because of not having the family values, not having the foundation. I knew I had a deficit, and I knew that I needed to work harder to get to where I needed to get to. And there's more stuff that went on. My stepdad was very abusive.
Yeah.
He was abusive to me. He was abusive to my older brother. My older brother took that abuse and coated it with drugs, right?
Right.
I took that abuse and I said, okay, I know I need to heal my soul from whatever happened, right? And so I devised a plan at 15, 16 to get out of Riverside. And again, this I tell people, this was all God, because I'm 15. How am I going to be so creative to devise this very well calculated plan to get out of Riverside? Because I knew.
You're not giving yourself enough credit. You can't. You can't say this was God. This was you.
No, but seriously, if you understand the plan that I devised, like, I don't even know how I could have come up with this. And the plan was, I basically told my mom, because at this point, and I'm jumping around, but our high school was very gang infested.
Okay. And
I was very much a, just not into any of that stuff, but more so I would always build these connections with my teachers. And I had one particular teacher who I think about, I close my eyes, I could see her to this day, beautiful soul, and she had breast cancer. And so she would come to school with a wig because she didn't have hair. Yeah. And I remember in class one day, and I always protected her because I was always protective of the people who were being bullied. It just was my nature to have like deep compassion for anyone that was being targeted. Again, I just think I was born with that. And so this new girl comes to class, and she's just going off on my favorite math teacher, and calling her names in class. And I stand up and I basically tell this girl off because my teacher ran out of the room crying. And so I guess I humiliated her. Okay. I didn't know she was part of a gang. It just, for me, it was a natural instinct. Long story short, her and her little gang buddy friends chased me home with a knife that day. And so I said to my mom, I said, look, I can only do so much in this place before someone takes me out. And I'm not safe here. Like, I'm not safe. So I'm out of here. Here's the idea. And so, I started going through her Rolodex of friends who she knows in LA, Beverly Hills, and we managed to find somebody who has an address in Beverly Hills so I can go to Beverly Hills High School. Okay. And live with one of her cousins in Santa Monica. I mean, it was a whole...
you engineered this whole thing.
I engineered this whole...
Your mom wasn't going to do this for you.
No, of course not. She didn't even know where to begin. And I was like, don't worry, I will figure it out.
Sorry, you said to her, you'll figure it out.
I told her I'll figure it out. Because she's like, how are you going to do this? Like, how is this even possible? Like, I'm like, we'll figure it out. Wow. And so I did do that. And I managed to go to that high school. And then when I got to that high school, I got, gosh, this high school is just as bad as that high school, just different. Rich people with rich people problems. These kids are doing drugs at school. They might not be with gangs and knives, but it was pretty. It wasn't a great school. I mean, they were doing, young kids doing cocaine in the bathroom.
This is like Beverly Hills High?
It was Beverly Hills High. Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
Okay.
You had 16-year-olds driving Rolls Royces to school.
So this, it's interesting because I'm making connections as you're telling me this based on just my relationship with you and knowing you the way I do. You're a very wealthy person, and for a very wealthy person to be as kind of humble and not fussed with like all the toys, like you mentioned the Rolls Royces, but David does drive a Rolls Royce, one of many vehicles, but that's not the point. My point is that with you, like your outward kind of presentation, you're not covered in brands. That's not your thing. So and that's a big thing in society right now. I mean, these businesses are flourishing by convincing all of us that we need whatever we need. But would you say that by having that, I guess, kind of negative experience at Beverly Hills High, you were like, I don't need any of this stuff. It doesn't make you a better person.
It had a huge impact on me.
That made you humble.
I'm looking around at these kids, and I'm seeing these kids. They're wearing Gucci from top to bottom. They're wearing all these name brands, and they're walking around not treating people nicely.
Yeah.
There was no humility in them, and I just thought, gosh, if I have kids one day and I'm as wealthy as their parents, I do not want my kids behaving like this. Which is why, sometimes my daughter comes to school wearing holes in her shoes, and I let her do it because I never want clothes to define her.
Right.
And if she's comfortable with those sneakers that have a hole in them, I let her do it.
Okay.
So yes, it did. It had a huge impact on me. So there were a lot of things that happened during that year that I was at that school, but there became a point where I was like, okay, Mom, it's time for you to get out of Riverside. I will help you. Let's go to Orange County.
You were living?
I was living with her cousin in Los Angeles.
Got it.
And it wasn't really a good circumstance for me. At some point, I was sleeping in a car because I had to get out of that house as well.
You're 16?
16, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was one thing my mom did give me, though. She gave me her car to as mobility. So that was very helpful for me. And then I said, look, I will meet you in Orange County. I will help you find a place. But you got to get out of there because I don't know how long I'm going to survive here alone. Because it's literally, I'm like alone. And we went to Orange County, found this apartment complex that had low housing. And so I just basically helped her move. And then I started my life in Orange County, which was a lot safer and it was a lot more stable because at least now I'm in my mom's house.
Right.
And it's just a lot more of a protective environment because I'm with my mom. I'm not with strangers, right? And that really kind of began my journey. And I remember, I never really liked high school at all. I never liked school at all. But
for somebody who's like a decorated student with an MBA saying you didn't like school.
Well, I didn't like high school and lower.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't until I hit college that I fell in love.
So talk to me about college for a second.
But I want to explain why I didn't like high school and below. Okay. There were a lot of bullies.
Yeah.
It was a lot of just rote memorization, not using your brain. It was a lot of just mechanics going through the motions. The teachers had no heart. They could care less about you. The two teachers that made the biggest impact in my life, that to this day I close my eyes and I tear up thinking about them, are the ones that had the biggest hearts. You kind of see where I'm getting at, right? They had the biggest hearts. They were full of love. They embraced me with hugs. They told me they believed in me.
You're describing yourself today.
And I'm describing my teachers at my school.
I know, but those teachers, those are the teachers that, because you literally walk around this school every day and hug each child. You hug 300 kids a day or 350 kids a day.
I hug as many as wants to hug me.
Okay.
And some of them come up to me and ask me for a hug. Some of them just grab me and hug me, We
were at your house one time for a pool party, and I was there with, Valeria was out of town, and I was there with Jake and Ben, our two older boys. And Ben disappeared for 2 hours. And I asked around him, like, where is he? And they said, don't worry, he's safe. He's with Leila. And I'm like, he's with Leila? He's like, yeah, he's with Leila. I'm like, okay, he's with Leila. He came back afterwards. I go, what were you doing? And he was playing some board game with
Monopoly.
You or something. You were playing Monopoly with my 8-year-old
and my daughter.
Right. And I was I was shocked. So and
he was very good at it, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah, it wasn't any Monopoly game. It was a resource Monopoly game. So you had to use a lot of math, and he was excellent at it.
Well, it's good. It's good to know. It's good to know. So I guess I'm trying to understand, like, you were naturally this person. But if somebody wants to...
Well, let's go back
I'm just
to
trying to understand.
I want to go back to the teachers
Please,
first, right?
yes, yes.
So those two teachers that really, and I'll never forget one of them who looked at me and said, Leila, you are so much more than you're putting out in this classroom. Because at some point I would act up, right? And I would be this class clown because I was getting attention, right? And I just turned everything off because school wasn't exciting. And I remember this freshman year, I had this teacher, and he was such a beautiful soul. He pulled me aside, and he's like, I believe in you. And at that point, I had an F in that class, okay? And I remember that he just looked at me, and he had this conversation with me, and I looked up at him at his eyes, and I could feel his love, and I went from an F to an A in that class. Now, when I left that school, of course, I kind of went back to my ways because I didn't feel it from the teachers, right? And so once I hit college, I knew, okay, I'm an adult now, I'm on my own. And I need to kick it in, because if I don't kick it in, I'm going to end up like my peers.
Right.
Who pretty much, most of them ended up being nothing.
From a practical perspective, I'll tell you what the problem is with this podcast is that there's not enough time. I didn't realize how much information there would be, how much just truly interesting information. So I know that we're pressed for time. I do want to
What time is it?
It's 11 o'clock, and we have another about 35 minutes. Yeah. So I want to make sure we cover. There's a lot of other interesting things.
But I want to say this part,
Please.
though. Can I say this part?
Yes, of course.
Because I think it's important because it ties into the school also.
Yes.
So when I went to college, I had to start at a junior college, right? Because I didn't have the scores to get me directly into a USC. I just didn't, because I was pretty much just trying to get by.
You were dealing with extenuating circumstances, extreme circumstances.
I just was trying to make it by. So I went into the junior college. I stepped it up straight A's. Okay. Mindset. Now we talked about mindset. What did I do to strengthen my mindset? I started listening to Tony Robbins cassette tapes at 18.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow. Tony Robbins did this. Wow.
Tony Robbins at 18. And I found a hypnotist that I scrounged money together. It was $100 for a 2-hour session. And she recorded hypnotic tapes for me to empower myself and rewire my brain. At 18, I did this.
You were so proactive about determining what it is that you needed to get you where you wanted to be.
Yes.
And then all of your actions mapped to that. And that's what I'm trying to establish as kind of.
That's what happened.
It's intentional, very intentional.
That was the intentional going. I know my mindset is not right. What do I need to do to strengthen my mindset? Because I know in my heart of hearts, I'm meant for something better. And so I was very proactive, and I was very aggressive about it.
Okay.
And then I was able to go to USC. I was able to get part scholarship. And then I went to USC, accounting undergrad. They were the third in the nation.
Yeah.
It was an extremely great program. I excelled, magna cum laude. And all of it was from transforming my mindset.
Okay. It's incredible. Okay. So you've graduated college, finished top of your class. You went on to do your MBA.
Yes.
Well,
I went to the executive MBA program, so I was a CFO at the time.
You were already a CFO.
I was one of the youngest CFOs in Orange County for a $1 billion company. So I was around 29.
So you can't just make a statement like that and move on. How old are you when you became the CFO of this
29,
company?
Yeah. I beat out other people who were way older than me with way more experience.
You're out of school. No, but hold on a second. 29, when did you finish your schooling?
22.
So what did you do in that 7-year period?
I was doing consulting. I worked for Anderson and then Deloitte to get my strong accounting experience.
So how did you get into Anderson? You graduated school. Is it strictly on your academics?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got into Anderson.
Yeah, they picked the top people.
Okay, so you're at Anderson for
I had an internship there. So they usually pick the top people.
And you were there for 7 years?
No. I was there until they went under,
Okay.
They had
I don't remember when they went.
They had the big Enron scam, so I was there for like 2 years.
Was it Enron that put them down?
Yeah, okay. Enron. Yeah. Well, they put themselves down by their lawyer.
Okay.
Saying things that they shouldn't have done.
Leila, you might have to come back and be a reoccurring guest because I don't think we'll cover everything in one podcast.
And then I went over to Deloitte, which was another great accounting firm. There were 5 or 6 at the time, and I just I worked 20 hours a day. I was that person that would tell my bosses What else can you give me to do? I would finish a job and I would call my manager on the previous assignment and say, do you need extra help? I have extra time on my hands. And this is already at like 8 o'clock at night because we worked really late. And being an auditor, you worked late.
Yeah.
And so I craved knowledge and information, and I wanted to learn as much as I could possibly learn. And I never complained. One day I worked 30 hours straight with a smile on my face. That means I didn't sleep. And I woke up in the morning. I didn't wake up, but everybody just got to the office and I hadn't gone home.
What would you say to people who have a hard time motivating themselves to push through and work for various reasons? They have distractions. They have what would you say to that? Because your ability to do that isn't like common, I don't think.
I would say that then go to these different programs out there.
What programs?
You know, like Tony Robbins has a lot of incredible programs. You know, there's spiritual programs where you can heal your soul, where you can strengthen your mind. Go get the help that you need. You don't need to go out somewhere. You can also read books. You can listen to YouTube videos. You can help yourself get pumped and excited about life. And knowing that every single person on this planet has a purpose. But many people just don't desire. They don't have this drive to go figure out their purpose. Going back to college for a second, when I was in college, I had so much fun learning, and I asked myself, what is the difference in this environment compared to high school and lower? And then I started writing down all the differences. USC was known to teach people how to critically think, how to problem solve. I was very hands-on. It was very experiential. And I'm like, oh my God, if I ever sent my kids to a school one day, it would have to have all of these qualities. Now, I didn't know at the time I would own a school and I would build a school with those qualities. But I knew when I had kids, I would send them a school with these qualities. Also, my teachers were so loving and amazing. And again, I thought, gosh, that has been the biggest difference is the teacher or professor and how I was learning. I loved to learn. I became excited about school. I became excited about the knowledge because the way it was being presented to me. And so that's why here at Centner Academy, you can see everything that I just explained.
Yeah, for sure.
Is how our school is. I mean, you drop your kids off at school, and the first thing is music, they're dancing, and they're greeted with a hug.
Leila, you had a mariachi band here earlier.
I did.
You had a mariachi. I pull up to the school to drop off my kids, and there's a mariachi band greeting the children.
Yes.
What was the logic behind the mariachi band? Oh, it was Cinco de Mayo.
Celebration, Cinco de Mayo. We were celebrating it before that. You saw the Irish guy with the pipes and the skirt?
No, I didn't.
You missed that guy?
I missed that guy.
Yeah, and before that, we had the carolers.
Wow.
Singing holiday songs. Yeah, that's, I want them to be excited about coming to school, because when you're excited, when you're learning things in a different way, you spend 8 hours a day here. You love it. When you know that you're having a bad day, your teacher looks at you in their eyes and gives you a hug. Because, sometimes kids, they come to school and they had a rough morning with their parents, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And these teachers are so connected to them, they know. And so my 8-year-old was having a rough day. We had a little argument in the morning, and she came to school, and Lee Marie, right, who my daughter loves. She braided her hair, and she gave her a warm hug, and she called me up. She says, "Everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, we had a little argument in the morning."
Right.
And so, but my daughter needed that. Actually, my daughter came home that day. She, "Can Lee Marie be my teacher next year?" One of my teachers. But it's that environment of knowing that you were stepping into a place where you can be calm and peaceful because your environment is so beautiful, and that you're safe and protected.
While at the same time being highly productive.
Yes. You are more productive in a calm, peaceful environment. If you are stressed, you are not taking in any of the information.
That's the lesson, right? That's it sounds to me like throughout your kind of life, you've been trying to put yourself in that environment of calm. Like you've been helping yourself, and that's what's driven you to succeed. I want to go back to the time, like kind of the details of your earlier life. So at 29, you've become the CFO of $1 billion company.
Yes. They had over $1 billion in assets at the time.
So, I mean, did you ever suffer from imposter syndrome? Like, did you ever say, like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm 29 years old and I'm, no? You were just like, this is who I'm meant to be.
I met one of the candidates that I actually beat out who, the interesting thing is I had no experience in real estate. And this other guy was...
I remember reading that. This was a real estate... What was it? Was it
a fund? Or I worked for a real estate developer.
It was a developer. Okay.
Yeah. And this other guy had way more real estate experience. He was older than me. And we ended up using him for a little bit of consulting for something. And I said to my bosses, why did you choose me over him? And he said, we believed in you. There was something about you, we believed in you. And I remember when I got the job, I bought like 15 books, all about real estate. And I stayed in the office every day till 1 or 2 in the morning, reading everything I could possibly read about finance and real estate. Because I wasn't going to let anybody down. And I was actually maybe 27 at the time.
Did you enjoy working for people? Did you enjoy being an employee?
I loved working for this company, yes.
In general, did you enjoy being an employee versus being an entrepreneur? At
that point, I felt I needed the knowledge. I knew at some point I would be an entrepreneur.
You knew?
I always knew that as well.
At what age?
My first business venture, I was in middle school, maybe 6th or 7th grade, selling lollipops. Yeah. And I bought my first bike with my lollipops and felt
lollipop money?
With lollipop money, and I had hired and recruited other people to sell
Take me back. Hold on a second. Take me back. Okay, so you're how old are you in this scenario?
I'm trying to remember because I was in middle school. So I don't know what.
14?
10, 11, 12.
Even,
yeah.
Okay.
It was younger, yeah.
Okay. It's funny because you tell me this story and I'm thinking, why are you have this marketplace and the kids are constantly making like muffins and selling them, and you have this, it's kind of like a mock marketplace in the sense that you're creating that environment. Now I understand where it comes from. Okay. So you're 10 years old and you decided, where'd you get these lollipops from? Like, did you buy them somewhere?
My mom loved Costco.
Yeah.
So we went to Costco one day and I'm seeing all of these things. And I remember other kids at school selling candy, but they were selling candy for the groups at school, like the, student association groups, right?
Right. They were doing it to raise money for the it's very common.
Yeah. Yes, right. And so I'm like, if they're selling candy, why can't I sell candy?
Right.
Right? And so I'm like, Mom, I need to borrow $6. It was $6 for a box of 100 lollipops.
So she was your first investor.
She was my first investor. I said, I promise you, I'll pay you back.
Right.
Okay. So she gives me the lollipops, and she's like, "You're not going to eat those lollipops." I'm like, "No, I'm going to sell every one of them."
Okay.
So she gives me the box, and I sell the box out, and it's 25 cents, 100. That's $25.
What was the distribution model? How did you just?
I would just go up to people with lollipops. Hey, would you like to buy a
school?
At school.
You were the lollipop girl.
I was the lollipop girl. 25 cents each. You just give me $1. I don't even need to give you change. Versus people would be buying 4 lollipops at a time. Everyone had $1 in their pocket.
Right.
And so I sold out. I made $19 my first day. And I was like, wow, this is easy.
And you knew you'd be an entrepreneur at that point.
At that point, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was, but I was like, if I could do this for a living, this is what I want to do.
Okay, so just so you know, if my 2 older boys show up trying to sell stuff to other students,
yeah.
You'll understand why I encourage them to do so.
Exactly.
Got it.
It's why not?
Got it.
And so then what I did is I realized that in order to make more money, because there was this few $100 bike I wanted, that if I wanted to get this bike, I couldn't just do it all on my own. So then I started recruiting other people and giving them a percentage of the lollipops that they sold. And so, within a couple weeks, I was just selling like crazy. And then I upgraded and I started bringing Snickers bars, and I had this whole operation. Okay. And then I remember getting called into the office and saying, "You're not allowed to sell candy anymore." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Everybody sells candy." Like, "Yes, you're hurting our student sales. We're not raising enough money because I'm undercutting everybody, right? They're selling candy bars for like $2. I'm selling them for $1."
Okay, so I know you did something to overcome this. Well, how did you overcome this challenge?
I actually couldn't. They threatened to kick me out of school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did continue to try and stop all my people who were doing it and just do it undercover. But then I got caught. And they brought me in the office and said, you're going to get kicked out of school if we see you selling candy again. And I'm
this
like,
is a story that the world needs to hear. This is something I bet that there's no. I mean, you've done interviews with a lot of major publications.
That's the first time I'm sharing this. Yeah,
right.
Actually.
So I'm honored that
yes.
I'm honored that I'm the one who gets the lollipop story. So thank you for that. I wanna go back to your career.
But I
path.
did buy my bike, by the way.
And then
I
what
was
did you?
so excited about that bike.
And that made you mobile.
That not only did it make me mobile, it empowered me. I felt a sense of empowerment, knowing
an accomplishment that it was your bike.
That it was my bike. I bought it with my money, and I did it on my own. And so that's why at school we have these kids from the early age of first grade, even preschool building. I want them to feel the sense of empowerment.
Right.
I want them to be creative. I want them to problem solve issues. I want them to understand that all of these skills that they're learning as it connects to the business world are skills that are going to last a lifetime, which is why I have a huge foundation of entrepreneurship at our school, because it will, even if somebody is ready to be an artist, the skills that they're going to learn, being able to sell their own art,
right,
is invaluable. Look at how many artists completely fail because they don't know how to add money. They don't know how to keep track of their money. They don't know how to keep track of their inventory. They don't know how to price. They don't understand supply and demand.
Well, to be successful at anything, I believe it's you have to have the combination of whatever it is that you do plus business.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You can't do one with the other. And actually, I mean, just from my own life, I mean, Valeria had zero business experience, even though she was very knowledgeable, but actual practical experience. When she started becoming an influencer, it was the combination of both kind of the business experience that I had in running operations and her creating, being a master at creating content. So, but to have both, you kind of need to have. Now she has both because now she has the experience.
You taught her everything.
I don't know. I didn't teach her everything. She iterated on it. Like we did it together.
Okay.
So we've built this business together.
My husband taught me a lot.
I've learned. We're gonna get to your husband in a second. But let's go back. Okay. So you're working there at this for this developer. How long were you there for?
I was there for I think 2.5 years. And then I think it was the 2008 crisis. What was the big?
It was 08.
Was it 08? Yeah, that hit.
Yeah.
And right before that, we were fortunate to sell off a lot of assets because they had a feeling something was coming, and they were just very smart. They got very liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so everything was kind of on freeze because then their partnership, there were things going on, and it was. And I remember sitting in my office just not being productive. And I went to him one day and I said, look, you're paying me all this money to sit here and not really be of value because we're not buying, we're not really doing much right now.
How did you meet David?
So David and I met online. I wasn't much of a...
I already know because David told me, but I'd like to hear from you.
Yes, we met online. And, the California scene, the California guys, it wasn't working. It wasn't working for me. So I was all about manifesting an amazing soulmate. So I had written all these things about what I was looking for in a soulmate, and I was very focused. And I was like, okay, it's time. Because I was married in my early 20s.
Okay.
And I knew he wasn't my soulmate, so that's why I never had kids with him.
Okay.
So I went online, and I had been online.
If we had more time, I would examine that first marriage.
Sure.
But for the purpose of time,
we'll come back for that.
Okay.
And 2 years prior, I had been online and dating mainly in the California scene.
Yeah.
And then I got offline.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is just not working for me. And then I spent 2 years dating somebody who just was for fun, really.
Got it.
And then there was a moment where I realized that, okay, it's time for me to get out of this relationship and focus on truly finding my soulmate because it's time.
Your soulmate, your partner, you're correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
The love of my life, who I was meant to be with and have babies with and live happily ever after.
Got it.
And at this time, when I had left the developer, I started my own online accounting company. And so he became my client. So I helped him because he only needed, maybe 10 hours a week.
You say you met him online. You didn't meet him online dating.
I did meet him online dating, but he
became your client.
No, I'm sorry. My developer, the previous boss, became my first client.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought you meant David.
But I started my own online accounting company,
Gotcha.
like a virtual CFO type deal.
Got it.
That's what I was doing when I met my husband.
Got it.
And so then I I broke up with that guy, and I focused on myself for about 30 days of just kind of like energetically moving away from that and finding my new space. And then I put a profile online, and I met my husband the next day or two.
Do you think
and it was game over?
Do you think it's some kind of coincidence that like these serendipitous things seem to happen to you? It's manifestation.
I think it's manifestation. I think it's God, and I think I'm surrounded by some amazing angels.
You know, I agree with you on all those points, but I think the part that you're missing is the continuous work and effort you put into your life.
I tell everybody this: you can believe in God all you want. If you sit on the couch drinking sodas, you're going to get nowhere.
Exactly.
I work very hard.
That's the message that
and
I see how hard you work. Yes. So that's the message, I think, that yes, like serendipity follows effort. Yeah.
And I tell everybody my actions are very intentional. To be intentional in all your actions, right? And so every single corner of this building, of this space, my wellness spot, it's intentional. There's a reason behind it. There is, you know, there's a reason for it. And all of the classes that I've taken, I mean, I immersed myself into a 3-day hypnotic trance class, you know, wow. Like I've been to so many workshops because I'm working on myself. You know, I went to India 5 times in 1 year, working on my soul, you know, working on doing deep meditations and breath work because I'm healing past life trauma or, trauma when I was a baby that I didn't even know I had, right? Or my mom did the cried out method. I had to heal that trauma as well,
right,
of being left in the crib to cry. Right? So I've worked so hard on healing my mind, body, and soul. You have to put the time.
Absolutely.
You cannot just sit around and say, let myself be healed. And that's it. That doesn't work that way.
When you met David, did David understand who he was dealing with when he first met you? I think I know the answer based on my conversations with him.
He had an idea. And he knew that I was somebody that was going to throw myself into any sort of help I needed if something wasn't going in the right direction. He
told me that you were, if I understood him correctly, you were very modest when you met, and he thought, oh, you're like, you have an MBA, you're a CPA, like you're not. And then you became the CFO of his company with him.
Yeah.
And then you were at the helm with David when you sold that company. So you came in really modest into this relationship with David, and then you guys created this like dynamic duo.
Yeah.
And talk to me about the sale of this company in the sense that.
Well, you know, he always says to me, you know, Leila, you don't market yourself well. I think you might have told me that as well.
I did tell you that.
Because I don't feel good about walking around telling everybody all these things that I am. I just like to just be. And if somebody figures it out on their own, they will, right? And so when I met my husband, I just wanted to just be. I didn't want to come into a relationship telling him all the reasons why I wanted him to fall in love with me. It was either just going to happen or it wasn't. And he was the same way, by the way, super humble. One of the smartest guys I know. He did the exact same thing. And that's, I think, what our hearts gravitated towards was he was very pure and loving, and I was the same way, and we were just who we are. I mean, I tell everybody the story of when I met him. He was so excited, you know, that he bought his furniture for $3,000 in this apartment he had, you know. And I actually was like, oh my God, I love you more. Because I was tired of these guys that all they did was brag about their stuff. I'd be like, oh my God, not another one. I don't care about your stuff.
He had what to brag about. He had already been very accomplished when you met him, was he not?
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
Right.
And when I would hear him on the phone talking about his business, it was a lot of struggle at the time.
Right.
Right. And he was dealing with some things.
This was HTA, right?
Yeah, HTA. So, you know, and his company was struggling a little bit at the time. But the foundation was something that would have been amazing to build off of. And I had no idea. I was just like, let me help you. And I would even tell some of my friends, like, look, if I have to be the breadwinner in this relationship, I will. Because I didn't know who he was.
Right.
But I was that in love with him, you know. And so I said to him, just let me help you. I can help you.
So you didn't start off right away as a CFO? This was how many people were in the company?
I didn't start off right away as a CFO because he didn't really know the chops that I had. So I
Right.
started helping him at home.
And that's what he told me. He said, I didn't know.
He didn't know. No.
He said, oh, she's like going to help me out in the business. I remember him telling me the story. But let me ask you something. How many employees did he have when you entered into that company?
Well, I like to tell people this. We grew our bottom line 40x.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
40x.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was our brains together.
Yeah.
Was really the power, because individually he was smart and I was smart, but it was like a key in a lock. The things that I had that were super valuable that his business needed, he didn't have. The things that he had that were super valuable and the business needed, I didn't have.
Have you considered potentially like helping people through some kind of platform? I don't know, but like specifically, I mean, there's a lot that you can contribute, obviously. But specifically like with couples, how to get couples in line so they can do and kind of achieve big things together. Is that something you've considered?
I actually already told my husband that in 5 years, this is what we're going to be doing.
Okay. Well, let me know if I can help. I mean, I have experience in building personal brand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not now because we have too much on our
You
plate,
do.
but in 5 years, my goal is for us to be helping other entrepreneurs break through. Because, you know, the person we are today is not the person who we were 12 years ago. You know, my husband also had a very, very tough upbringing. His mother was extremely abusive. His dad died at a young age. He grew up not even with proper shoes. I mean, he had holes in his shoes. And he just had his life was very, very hard. And so we both went on this healing journey together. But my husband had also ventured out to find this healing stuff on his own before meeting me.
Prior to meeting you.
Like he went to Landmark Forum.
Right.
And so he knew that there was more healing that could be done. And when we met each other, within a year of our relationship, I had hired a relationship coach.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm like, look, we both come from very broken homes. And he had a broken marriage. I had a broken marriage. I'm sure we're going to encounter things that could tear our relationship apart, mainly communication. So let's learn these skills, because if we learn these skills, we can get through anything. And so we started our relationship with a relationship coach.
I think that's a great initiative. And I think if couples did that, they would, number one, stay together.
Yeah.
They would enjoy their marriages more, and they would accomplish far more together.
Yeah, and then the biggest revelation we had was looking within. So in relationships, a lot of times, and this could probably be another podcast, seriously, just on this topic, people jump from relationship to relationship, but they're bringing their same problems to the next relationship.
Absolutely.
And they're constantly in the blame game.
Yes.
They want to blame and they want to be a victim. And so they repeat that. And so they've been married 3 or 4 times when they're not working on the root cause of the problem, which is their own soul that needs to be healed. And so when we went to India and realized, okay, the relationship coach helped us communicate, helped us kind of get through these bumps. But until we heal our soul, until we look within every time we're annoyed, frustrated, anger, stressed, which is, again, this is stuff we teach at the school, right? To not blame others, to look within, we're never going to resolve our own issues. And so now we never ever say, you made me mad. Because the other person is not in charge of our feelings. Even my kids know this. I will never tell my kids you made me mad. And if I slip and say that, say, Mom, who's in charge of your feelings?
Right.
And we teach that at school here.
Yeah, no, look, I see it in my kids. I see a profound difference in them in the last year. So everything that you're currently preaching, you're actually doing.
We're doing.
That 40X from when you started the company to when you sold it, how long was that period of time?
It's about 5 years.
5 years, 40X in 5 years.
Yeah.
How long was the business going from before then?
About 10 years.
Wow.
About 10 years, and the summer of 2011, David kind of hit rock bottom. We met the summer of 2011. He kind of hit rock bottom because he had like a father figure who was really kind of leeching the business.
Yeah.
He hit rock bottom, and I just happened to come into the picture right after that. So again, the bones were there.
Yeah.
He was ready. It just needed some.
Was he, at some point, did he look at you and say, how the hell do you know how to do all this?
Yeah, he did.
That must have been a crucial moment in your relationship when he understood who he was dating.
Yeah.
Or married to at the time.
I will say, I also, because of my childhood, didn't have the self-confidence to match my knowledge.
Right.
And so he would be like, Leila, he would tell me all these things and he would fill me up. And I'd be like, it was a lot for me to hear and take in because I just didn't grow up with that sort of,
right,
nurturing environment of somebody believing in me. And he believed in me every step of the way. And he would watch me do things and he'd be like, do you realize what you just did? And it took me a while to go, oh yeah, this guy's right. And that's why I tell everybody now, your partner is everything in life.
You just answered the question right before I asked it, is how important is the partner you choose?
Everything.
I say that often.
Because the previous guy I was married to would emotionally beat me down to keep me down. He knew how smart I was, but he didn't want me to know how smart I was. Because of that, I wasn't able to be controlled.
It threatened him too.
Yes.
As a man, I guess.
Yes. But with my husband, never. He was always my biggest fan. And I was always his biggest fan. I always tell him like, gosh, I could feel your power. Just let it out. You were so powerful. Mm-hmm. Don't hold back. Just let it roar. And again, my husband is one of the most smartest men I know. But
he's
his
probably one
childhood,
of the most smartest men I know. Yeah.
But his childhood beat down his self-confidence as well. And so we really, really encouraged each other. We mentored each other. We nurtured each other. I mean, my husband is my best mentor. He's taught me things in business that to this day are helping guide me.
It's evident in your relationship how close you are and how in sync you are. I have a question, and it's something that I noticed. It's something that I feel it's like a reoccurring thing with accomplished people. Is they had really hard situations, hard times. They had periods of their life where they were at such a low, and the experience of living through that and fighting through that made them, who they eventually became. How important do you feel it is or how much did your negative situation early in life contribute to your success today?
Probably a lot. I mean, I go back and I look at my mom's relationship with men.
Yeah.
And I knew that was never going to be me.
Right.
I was engaged, my mom was, abused by my stepdad.
Right.
And I was engaged in college before the guy I married, and he slapped me in the face.
Oh.
And I was gone the next day. I was never going to be what my mom was.
It motivated you.
It motivated me. Yeah, absolutely.
It could have gone the other way too, right?
Of course. It goes the other way for many people because it's familiar to them.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know that saying, there's twin boys, or let's say twins, and their father's an alcoholic, and one of them is an alcoholic and the other one is not, and they get asked the question, why are you an alcoholic? Because my father. They ask the other one, why are you clean and sober? Because of my father.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's taking it that positive.
Yeah.
Like even my dad there was strain, and that's a whole other story, and he treated my mom not in a good way, and I took that, and instead of going down that path, I now over-index on supporting my wife. Mm-hmm. So and
I could see that. You're such a supportive husband.
You.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that about you too.
Leila, I wish we could continue, and I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna stop it simply because you do have to leave.
Okay.
And I'm being respectful of your time. Look, I just want to say that this has really been kind of game changing for me, because although you and I are friends and we know each other, and my all of our kids go to your school, and I'm so grateful for it, but I've never really had this heart to heart with you. So I just want to thank you, and I want to say that there are some people who are as successful as you, more or less, who when you meet them, you kind of think I'm trying to word this correctly. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you so fully deserve all of the good that's in your life, all of it, like your health, the business success. You deserve it so much. And I just wanted to close out by making one final statement. When you sold your company, when you and David, when you guys sold your company, you could have done anything. you could have done nothing, right? Because you're okay for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But you chose to do the
Many
most
lifetimes.
many lifetimes, many lifetimes, and you chose to open up, to do the most difficult things, to open up a school for small children because of your belief that the education system was and is broken, and you offered this alternative, this correct way to educate children. So you deserve all of the happiness, you deserve all of these good things, and the fact that you're doing this with kids, yeah, I'm really happy that we're friends, and I'm over the moon that my kids go to the school.
Well, February 28th, 2018, we sold. March 1st, I started planning and organizing for the school. So I was ready to go.
You didn't even take a break.
Didn't even take a break. And, as you know, our kids are our future.
Yeah.
And the souls that we nurture today, the souls that we help teach these valuable skills that they're learning, these are the ones that are going to be the next leaders of our free world. And we hope to keep this country as free as possible. And we can only do it if we have more people who are leading with kindness and compassion and integrity, and doing it from a place where they want more good in the world.
I can't believe how fortunate we were to meet you guys in the park that day and to be a part of this community. So, Serendipity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leila. I really
you must
appreciate
have
it.
Strong angels following you too.
I guess so. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure.
Thank
it
you.
was fun. Thank you.